Yeah, we're on 24a. Chavdal Amud Aleph. We're in the middle. It's middle. It says Loy Chai Shehudu Lemisa. It's pretty much smack right in the middle. First one in the line is Vilishi Vaka, and when it will break.
I have to translate with the Ashkenazic.
I don't know.
Into Sephardic. Give me the first couple of words in the line.
Lamed.
Say what?
Lamed Chaf Shin Yud.
I think I'm on the right page.
Chavdal Amud Aleph.
24A.
24a.
And the first word is Lamed Chaf Shin Yud.
Lamed Chaf Shin Yud. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Okay, great. Now we're in middle. We're smack right in the middle of a sugya that we were going back and forth. If Rabbi Yehuda, if Rameir is chayish, if we suspect for calamity, for death to take place, and we came out, the Rameir does usually suspect that someone in halacha is concerned about death, and Rabbi Yehuda is not. And that's pretty much where we're up to. And that takes place, therefore the Machlekes says, could one have an animal as a wall of a sukkah? Rameir said no, because one of the answers was either because he was going to run away, but Abaye's answer, that we're dealing with for the past Amud, was to do with the fact, will it die or not? So we're up to over there, V'loi Chayish, and then Rabbi Yehuda held, we don't worry about it. We don't worry about that. I want to ask, V'loi Chayish Rabbi Yehuda l'misa. Is it true? Do you really think that Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned about death? But Tanan Rabbi Yehuda Omer af eshes acheres misakinu lo yishema tamos ishtay. On Yom Kippur, the law was that a kohen gadol had to be married, and we'll see the verse. We'll see in a minute. The verse actually states that points to the fact that a kohen gadol, in order to do the service of Yom Kippur, has to be married. So they would point to him a second wife just in case his first wife died. They went as far as to worry that on Yom Kippur she might die, so he'll have another wife. Now, if she would die on Yom Kippur, he's not allowed to get married on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is Yom Tov. You're not allowed to get married on Yom Tov. Although maybe biblically you are allowed, so maybe they would do it. But whatever the case is if this is a Yuma, I'm sure you guys came across this. So therefore, we see that Rabbi Yehuda does worry about that because he's afraid that the kohen, the high priest's wife, is going to die. So in our law, on that we say, well, the reason is because that's a special case. The Torah gives special significance, the Gemara gives a special significance. We raise the ante a little bit, as to say, when it comes to kapara, because on Yom Kippur, we need the kapara, we need the atonement for the entire community, and therefore we were that much more worried about it. So in this specific case, Yehuda is worried that the high priest's wife will die, but this is the one case. So, okay, now we go further in this idea. Bein Laman Damar Shemet Hamus. Whether according to Rameir says that we're afraid that the animal is going to die. Bein Laman Damar Shemet Tivra. Whether we say that the animal is going to run away. Midaraisa Mechitza Ma'alya. Midaraisa ends up being that it is a good mechitza. V'Rabbanan hu degazruba. Then it's the Rabbanan that went ahead and made a decree that you can't use it. Now, if that's true, so we came out that really we came out that really one can go ahead and use a sukkah, wall, the animal as a wall for your sukkah. But according to Rameir, we were a little more stringent, and we didn't allow it. I'm just trying to find where we went through this, because we said yesterday we went through a brisa that mentioned all here. Here we go. Hold on. Yeah. So I'm just going to quote. I'm quoting from 23a. It's just a brisa. Rameir Omer Kol Davar Sheish B'Rochaim. Everything that has a life of breath, and Oisin Oislay Lay Doif in the Sukkah. You can't use it for a sukkah, and you can't use it for a mavoi, for an eruv, and you can't use it for the kasa libioris, which we'll come to again. It's those four corners that they permitted. They made a decree that if in the desert you could just have the four corners, and you could raise water from that area for the travelers to Yerushalayim. And the last one was like goyel lekever, and you can't use that as a cover for a kever, meaning it's not going to become tummy. So the problem is that the sukkah is really, it's a good sukkah, but the rabbis agreed you can't do it. Really, it's a good lechi, but the rabbis agreed you can't do it. But when it comes to the goyel lekever, and that's the Gemara about to ask, it's a little interesting because we're going to go for the Gemara. El me'atler meir tetami mishum goyel al tetami mishum goyel. If you use an animal as a cover for a kever, as a cover for a casket, it should become tamei. Alama tanan Rabbi Yehuda mitami mishum goyel Rabbi Meir mitayer. How could it be that if everything is really midaraisa, could be used, it could be used as a wall? Just the rabbis decreed you can't. So how could you go with that? So that's a decree to be chumrah, to be more stringent. So of course the rabbis Chazal are allowed to go ahead and say it's permitted biblically, but as rabbis we're gonna make it invalid. But when it came to the cover for the casket, they were in trouble because really biblically it does become tamei, but Meir said that it's rabbinically is pure. How could the rabbi say something's pure when really it's going to be biblically impure? That's the question on the entire answer of the reason why Meir was afraid was because it might die. So if you use that whole answer, it's not going to work. So we're going to give a whole new answer for a Meir. Ella Amar Rav Acha Bar Yaakov Kesav Rav Meir Kol Mechitza Shemedes Baruch Eina Mechitza. Another answer for a Meir is that any mechitza that stands with ear, meaning it's a sack full of ear, which meaning an animal is full of ear. If you remove the life from it, the ear is going to dissipate and therefore it's going to collapse. That's one answer. Ikadamri, fourth answer, a new answer. Why is it that a Meir holds that a mechitza, an animal, can't be used as a wall for a sukkah? That Rameir held that any mechitza which was not created by humans, it's not called a mechitza. Okay. Now, the reason why something that has the thinking that this idea of something made out of ear is not going to be a good mechitza, because the ear is not something which is tangible. So if most of my wall is ear, it's not a very good wall because it's not tangible. It's being stood up with something that is just its ear being contained within something. It's being contained within a container. It's being contained, but for the most part, it's not tangible. Therefore, it's not a good ear. That was one answer. We had another answer because it's not made she'eina asui b'yadam. It's not made through a person. Okay. Now, my benayu, what's the difference? What's a practical difference between the two answers? The first answer of that it's something that it's made out of ear, it's standing on ear, which is not tangible, therefore it's not a good wall, or because it's something which is not man-made. Benayu, the ukma b'noi tapuach, that you blow that. The difference would be that you actually go ahead and you fill a blown-up wineskin, basically a balloon. You take a balloon and you create a wall out of it. If the one who holds that the reason is that it's not a valid wall in animals because it's standing it's made out of ear, now in that case, then the same thing over here. The answer is that there's ear. We're turning the page to the top of Chavdal Amud Beis, number 24b. Harei asui be'adam, a balloon or a wineskin which is blown up is made through human, therefore it will work, and that's a practical difference. Now, the halacha, by the way, is that I think you could use an animal as a wall. I'm not sure, but it's funny because we say you can't use a sukkah. I think you are allowed to use an animal, if I remember correctly. But it's funny because you were saying that you can't use a balloon basically as a wall, according to one person. So I saw once someone in Israel designed a pop-up sukkah It's just an inflatable sukkah. You just press the button to the blower. You take it out of your car. You have a small thing which is an actual, it pushes out air. It's a blower, and it just all of a sudden you take a little thing and it just pops up. You have a pop-up sukkah.
And it works? Does that mean it works halakhically?
Halakhically, I think so. I don't think we go with this idea that it can't be made out of air.
7 by 7.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could use an entire sukkah, but it's going to be a pretty loud sukkah because of the noise of the. It's continuously blowing in the air. So I think. Anyway, then I'm not sure how to hash on it. All right, we'll continue on the top of 24b. We're by the 2 dots on the first line. So Amar Mahar Mishum Rabbi Seglili. Amru Ein Kaisun Alav Kitinashim. So one of the things we said about an animal was the last thing we said that you can't use it as the walls for a sukkah, you can't use it for an Eider, you can't use it as a cover for a casket. And Rabbi Seglili threw on to that they can't use it to write a get for a woman. Now, my time Rabbi Seglili. What's the reason for Rabbi Seglili? Why can't not use an animal and just write on its hide while it's still living? And Panicos, you learn safer. The Torah writes of the cost of law safer krisos. The Torah writes that a husband has a responsibility at times to write a book of divorce, a book of separation, and it says safer. It says the book. Ein li'ela safer. That's only a safer. That's only a safer. Mnayin l'Rabbi is called davar. How do you know that we're coming to include everything? That you could use paper and you could use anything. It doesn't have to be written in a book format. Tamleimer of a cost of law. It says, and you should write for her. That's coming to the cost of law is coming to include a large swath, a large area. So a large amount of things. It's very it's including a lot. So so we see because of law means you can write for her anything that you could write on is going to work. Because of law, safer. So what was safer coming to exclude? Because safer is a prat. It's pointing to one specific. It's much specific. So if it says that you could write, that means you could write on anything. So what is safer coming to exclude? A book. What is something, a common factor between a book and everything else for the most part, is that it has no life to it and it doesn't eat. And therefore, it basically learns that this will include, you can write on anything, but it's excluding something that could eat or that has life in it, and therefore you cannot write on an animal. So it basically has a drasha from the Torah, using one of the ways to make a drasha to exclude an animal. Now, that's what basically. Obviously, the rabbis argue and say you could write on an animal because we specifically said, basically, the Rabbanon that said it's permitted to write on a live animal. What do? Did with this? Very beautiful. It says the cost of law is coming to include, and the safer is coming to exclude. So it's coming to exclude something. You can write on everything except the things that you can write on anything that it falls that are similar to safer. That's everything that doesn't have living life, or it's not, or doesn't eat. So what do they do? The sefer. If it said you could write in a sefer, bis sefer, in a sefer, then you're right. Then you would have a good drasha, Rabbi Seglili. Hasha, the cost of sefer, it just writes sefer, just writes book, which sefer literally really means words, not in a book. So if it say bis sefer, it will mean in a book. If it just writes sefer, it's just words. You should write the words which you have to write. The svarim devarim ba'am hudasa. It's just saying you should write the sphere svarim. It's coming. You should write words of separation. It's not coming to refer to a book at all. It's coming to refer to that you should write words of separation. Rabbanan hay v'kasav my darish pay. If so, according to the rabbis, what do they do with kasav? The kasav is still open. Basically, you use the kasav to tell us you can write on anything, and using sefer to exclude anything that is alive. What do the rabbis do with the kasav? My darish pay. Hum ba'yu b'ksiva miskarish ve'ini miskarish b'kasav. You actually have to write. You cannot divorce a woman with money, like giving her back her freedom with money, or buying back the rights to give her a get. Rather, you have to write it with a get, with a star, with a document. Now, why would you think I could use money? I might think we compare the leaving to the going in to the marriage. Just like you can marry with 3 ways. One of them is with money. since I might think that you could, just like you could go in with money, I could go out with money, so I need something specifically to tell me that you can't go out with money. Basically, how does he know this halacha? How does he know about that you can't go out with money? The rabbis learn it says v'kasav, you have to write and not give money. But Rabbi Yisrael is using that the v'kasav to teach us that you can write on anything and say for coming to exclude anything that's lie. But the point is, v'kasav is taken. So how does Rabbi Yisrael know that you don't have to write that you can't use money? And the answer is the sefer krisos nafgalei. It says sefer krisos, a book or words of separation. Nafgalei sefer kortav ein davar achar kortav. The only thing that could cut her off, meaning anything that could give a get, is only a book, words, a written document, and not money. So what does the Rabbanan do with sefer krisos? Now there's a new verse for them to open for them that they have to use. That you need a full separation. What does this mean? Get as follows. What happens if the man gives a get and he throws in a clause? This is again on condition you don't drink wine. I mean, if you drink wine, it will retroactively invalidate the get. Or you'll never go to your father's house forever. Because he really hated his father-in-law. And he said, I want nothing, I'm only giving you this get if you could pay him by never going to him. And again, it's a clause that's in the get. There's a condition, so it's not a full cutting out because there's a condition that still connects them. Is a krisos that doesn't work. So they use the word for sefer krisos to tell you that has to be a full cut, a full separation with no strings attached. Now, however, kol shloshim yom is a krisos. If you say you don't go to your father's house for 30 days, then it works. For the next month, you can't go to your father's house, but if you do that, then the get is fully enacted. That works because eventually, at some point, it will be a full separation. But the point is, you learn from a sefer krisos has to be a full separation. That's the rabbis. Now, the idach was Rabbi Yisrael. How does he know that? Mikaris krisos nafka. It says krisos, which is two things. So one krisos is coming to tell me that it has to be words of sefer krisos, words of separation. And then it says krisos, so it could say sefer karus, a book of separation. Why book of separations? Why plural? Coming to teach you, it has to be full separation without any strings attached. The idach, and why the rabbis do that, karus krisos darshi. They say, come on, it's getting a little nitty gritty over here. Karus to krisos, plural till singular is enough. We don't feel compelled and obligated to explain that. Therefore, that's the end of this Gemara. So Rabbi Yisrael learned that it can't be written on an animal. The rabbi said that you could. Rabbi Yisrael learned it because it says the cost of law. You can write to her. That encompasses everything. Sefer's excluding a specific anything that has life. Therefore, you cannot write on an animal. The rabbis use that for something else.